We've been together 34 years. 34 years. And it's not an easy task for everyone. It's not an easy task for everyone, especially not in this day and age. But like I said, you have to get married for the right reasons. You can't just jump into marriage because you see everybody else around you is married and you're like, oh, I need to be married to somebody. That's the one mistake a lot of people makes. You can't do that and then feel as though you're going to have a successful marriage if y'all weren't meant to be together. So you do have to, I'm just saying, take your time. Let God be your voice, your sounding board. Allow Him to make you one.
Hello, family, friends, and well-wishers. Welcome back to Conversations Beyond the Pulpit, the podcast where we delve into everyday life, human experiences through the lens of faith. Isn't my wife so beautiful? I'm your host, Bishop Joseph N. Roberts Jr., with my lovely co-host, Pastor Michelle Roberts, and today we're going to dive, and look at what's the bedrock of our marriage, the things that we don't want to compromise on, what builds our foundation, the non-negotiables, and simply said, the things that make us tick and thrive. So get ready for an awesome podcast today. It's going to be thought-provoking. It's going to be marriage and life challenging. And we're going to share with you, as we always do, some of the intimacies and intricacies of our marriage today. Again, we're talking about our marriage, not yours. So if you find some similarities, don't say the bishop was in the prophetic or somebody called him about us. Nope, we're just saying what makes us tick and thrive today. I love you, dear.
Love you too. Appreciate you.
So with all of that being said, what would you consider as the key to our foundation?
My non-negotiables.
No, what would you say is the key to our foundation? Not your non-negotiables. I know what they are. Just.
I don't know if you really know what my non-negotiables was.
I'm still here.
But love, commitment, and communication.
Yes, that is true. So
that is our
my
foundation.
wife has this thing. We will never go to bed not talking to each other.
Yes.
Communication is the key. We will always be committed to each other in a romantic way, in a mental way. And what I mean by mental is always trying to stimulate our emotional side of our life to understand the complexities of what we're dealing with mentally, emotionally. And I took my time with that because sometimes we might not audibly or verbally say some things, but you know when I'm dealing with stuff mentally.
Yes.
And so even though there's not a verbal communication that something's wrong, I thank God that you take the time to make sure that the code of silence is broken, and even taking that dive into, what's throwing you off today. So that's one of her non-negotiables. Like, you're not going to bed, with the light bulb on and the smoke coming out of your head. So I appreciate that. I really do. That's just from my heart to your heart. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Helps me have some good night's sleep when I get sleep. But anyway.
Oh, okay.
So our foundation is truly Christ in us, the hope of glory. I think we've patterned our life, our marriage, cornerstone being Ephesians 5, submitting yourselves one to another. And we've learned how, with my non-singing voice, to even make melody with our heart that comes out of our mouth, and be able to sing to each other, jokingly, but we know that there's more behind the jokes of our singing to each other. And then it's the way God have blessed us because we have learned to submit to the Lord. And I believe if we have not learned to submit to him and been led to submit to him, I don't think we would be able to submit to each other. And it's interesting because this was a topic in Vacation Bible School last night. So I'm going to talk about it a little bit, the difference between submit and compromise. And the Bible says submitting to one another. But if you have not learned how to fully submit your ways unto the Lord, who is our salvation, who's our creator, it's hard to submit to one another when now God is making you one, because it's under his auspices, under his order, under his divine control that he does that, and he melts our heart to the place, just like we've submitted to him, that we can submit to one another. And I'm appreciative today that is our foundation. Wives, love your husband, and husbands, wives, submit unto your husband as Christ submit unto the church, and husbands, love your wife as Christ loved the church. And Jesus submitted even to death on the cross. A lot of times, husbands say in marriage counseling, well, God told her to submit, not me. But if you look at the fact that he went to the cross, he submitted. And if through love, and if we're to love our wives as Christ loved the church, then there's a high esteem of submitting that we have to indulge in and engage in. So I'm very grateful today, viewers, that you're chiming into this, because what I've learned about, I've had to compromise some things in my life. I've had to compromise in taking jobs that I knew was paying me less than my qualification. That's a compromise. And what I've learned even there, that I compromise, again, through the lens of faith, to commit ourselves and our work wholly unto the Lord. And whatsoever is right, he would reward us. And once my compromise turned to me submitting as a man, I need this to take care of my wife and my children, then it was no longer a compromise. It was just me submitting to what God ordained for men to do. And I would never be on a job long that I was underpaid, that I didn't get merit increases. Am I right there? Or I would win contests. God would always do something. Once I got that compromised mind out, that I'm just submitting, because within this, it's helping me take care of the people that I love. And so in our marriage, rather it's what college the kids are going to, rather it's what car we're going to get for the kids, rather it's what kids are going to get your car, whatever the case may be, or even in our everyday love connection, when it comes down to intimacy, relationship, whatever it is, I'm not compromising that my wife's not up to it today. She's not compromising that I'm just overworked and tired today. It's just a submit. Even to our finances, and how we have been able to budget, buy things, and it transcends into our walk with God, or our walk with God is transcended into every area of our life. Even, in buying our church, in what upgrades we need to do, most of the time I want this, and you and the children come back and say, no, we need to do this more economically sound. And so it's not a compromise. It's a submitting one to another in the sight of God, in the beauty of love. So yeah,
I'm going to take the bishop and bring him back on topic, okay? So,
okay. I thought that was the topic today.
That's not the
It's
topic
the
today.
foundation.
It's the foundation of us, of why we're together, of what brought us together. Not.
Well, since we're together,
I mean, not that that didn't help. No, that's what helped us stay together.
Okay.
It was. So technically, today's topic is it's about me and you as a person, as we are to one another.
We're no longer people. We're just a person. That's wonderful.
That's true.
Thank you.
But we still have to interact with others. And there are others outside of me and you that
I was
see
just talking
us.
about me and you.
I know,
You
but
didn't say we
that
as
see
people. You
us,
said us
but
as a
that
person.
see us as a couple.
Right.
And I can say that for a fact because there's people that actually want us to marry them because they want what we have. But
we have Jesus. They can have him too.
yes, we have Jesus, but that's not what they're talking about.
Okay.
They see us as a couple.
Right.
So even as a couple, still in Jesus, but what people as outsiders see us as.
Okay.
So they don't know what made me have the desire to be with you after you chose me.
Okay. Got it.
You understand?
So that's what we're talking about today.
That's what we're talking
I'm back
about
on topic.
today.
So you go first. To our podcast viewers, I get off topic sometimes because we have a topic with no script.
So now back to topic. So we met each other. You know, we were young, single parents. I was 19 and you were 20 when we met.
That is so.
But as growing up, as I said in the other podcast of how I grew up and not seeing many married couples stay together, this is pertaining to me. So me, as I was growing up, I never knew that I was going to get married at such a young age. I always thought I probably wouldn't find a person that I wanted to be with all my life till I was in my 30s. Mm-hmm. But just so happened, God had a different, prospect. So, but I always used to say, well, Lord, if you're going to want me to marry somebody, they're going to have to be honest, truthful, be able to communicate, submit to the union. And so, I said, you're going to have to send me a godly man that's truly a godly man. And that really was my non-negotiables. I didn't care about how much money he was making, long as he had a job. I didn't care where he grew up with, as long as we loved each other. Because there's some people in relationships, they can't get along with the person that they with, family.
Right.
And then that makes them ready to walk away because they can't get along with them. So, and once you get married, it really is you and them. Even if you have children, we have this saying, our kids going to leave us one of these days, but our kids ain't going to leave us. Our kids going to always be here. But just saying, it's some marriages that have that happening. The kids grow up, they get grown, they move away. It's only the mom and dad left, and they don't know how to communicate with each other. They all of a sudden fall out of love with each other because they was there for the wrong reasons. And then now all of a sudden, after the kids all grown, 5-10 years later, they talking about children, me and your mom's getting divorced because, we just found out we don't like each other. But I'm just saying, that's just an example. Right. But those were my non-negotiables. And I can say that the Lord was listening to me. Because even when I wasn't going to church regularly, I was still having church with God. I just want to say that. So I always knew I had to talk to him about any and everything before he gave me my husband. So.
Okay, so those are your non-negotiables.
Those were, well, they still the same today, but yeah, but you haven't stepped outside of them, so.
So today's podcast, we're talking about the non-negotiables, your standard. So in your non-negotiables, in finding your spouse, accepting your spouse, and I think this is important when we talk about, it was a good segue too, talking about submitting to one another. Because we can compromise our non-negotiables. And so we live life with this thing in our mind, this is what I really wanted in a spouse, but this is what I accepted. And so it's hard to be fulfilled when you're living with something that wasn't, your intentions of marriage or of a person you wanted to marry. And so, you have to, submitting makes you crush out your will, your desire. So I'm helping the people today to have these very strong non-negotiables, and the Lord didn't hear your prayer and conversation, and you're in a marriage today, and you know that is the person that the Lord has led you to, found you, or whatever the case may be, however you want to spiritually put it. Love that person with your whole heart. They might not have met your non-negotiables, your standards, but this is the person that it's meant for you to build that life with. Man, get that figment that you had of what you were going to get in a husband or a wife and say, this is what the Lord has blessed me with. Submit to it and be happy. So with that being said, I don't know if I had a whole lot of non-negotiables. My big thought was she has to be mother material. I believe I had a wonderful mother. I had a wonderful natural mother coming up in ministry. I had a wonderful spiritual mother. Still have a wonderful spiritual mother today, and Apostle Rebecca Hazen and Mother Lester. So growing up as an only boy with 4 sisters, I understood what good woman quality looked like. And for me, the essence of a great woman's quality is her ability to be a great mother. So in my wife and I earlier, she said we were both single parents. And I can tell you, I was already looking at her. I believe I was already scouting out the land. But it was the day that she came into, the workplace and had her daughter, my daughter, with her. And I saw that mother quality. And my mother-in-law, we just call her Mom, happened to meet them there that day. So I got to see, Mom's mothering quality towards her daughter. Then I got to see her mothering quality towards her granddaughter. And I got to see my wife's qualities with her daughter, but yet her being a daughter to her mother in a public place. The dynamics was just phenomenal. So, I was like, man, that family looks like my family right there. I'm already drawn to my wife. And for me, that sealed the deal. Like there was no questions. And any other thing I might have had in my mind as to what a wife should look like or anything else, at my core, that mother quality, I think, is, so important. And for those people who are not biological mothers, who haven't, given birth to a child, you are a mother to somebody. You are, a mentor. You're a teacher. You are an instructor. it is that quality that is innate in women to be teachers, to be leaders, to be guides.
Yes.
So that was, my non-negotiable. That was my non-negotiable. And we spoke about, I think, on our last podcast, how we have a blended family. And I believe if you didn't have that mother quality that God knew I was going to need in a wife, 30 years into the marriage, when our first but last son, came into our life, it would have been a fight. So, God speak things into our spirit that he knows we're going to need to help us through life. So
Exactly.
I'm appreciative. Submit. Let that be, part of your non-negotiables. I'm looking for somebody who has a submissive heart, to God. And if they have a submissive heart to the Lord, you have a good chance that they're going to be submissive to the union.
Yes, and like he said, non-negotiables. You may have non-negotiables, but you may have to curtail them a little bit in order, because I'm not gonna say I was so strict on them, but I'm saying that's what I asked for, and I believe that I received that, and I thank God for that, because within our marriage, we still love and receive those qualities of one another.
Yes.
And so this was just an example and just us opening up a little bit about us as a couple and being married through these wonderful, we've been together 34 years. Yeah. 34 years. And it's not an easy task for everyone.
Right.
It's not an easy task for everyone, especially not in this day and age. But like I said, you have to get married for the right reasons. You can't just jump into marriage because you see everybody else around you is married and you're like, oh, I need to be married to somebody. That's the one mistake a lot of people makes. You can't do that and then feel as though you're going to have a successful marriage if y'all weren't meant to be together. So you do have to, I'm just saying, take your time. Yeah. Let God be your voice, your sounding board. Allow him to make you one, and not you yourself try to make yourself one with someone just because that's what you want, because you desire, you want to start a family right now. You just want to be married because, your three best friends all just got married. It's not something, this is not for, what do we say about people? Our family is not for the weak. Marriage is not for the weak. And this is why marriage today is not the way it should look to most of the world anymore, because people are jumping into something just because, they want to have a big, beautiful wedding. They want to be able to tell everybody, yes, I'm married.
They want the celebration.
Yes, they want the celebration without the marriage. Yeah. And that's why the marriage is such a weak thing. People say, oh, well, yeah, this is my first marriage. What do you mean your first marriage? You don't think your marriage is going to make it? I heard somebody told me one day, oh, I know it's not going to make it. I was like, then why did you get married? You can't get married with already having the inception in your head that you're going to be divorced. That's not what marriage is about. It's just not. You want to be married for the long haul. You want to still be able, if everybody thought about being married for the long haul, this world would be a whole lot better.
Well, it would
because you would have the sense of family everywhere like it used to be.
I like that. I believe also that you would have a sense of endurance. Yes. And I think we go into marriages from in a celebratory mode. We think about the wedding day, the banquet hall, the celebration, and we can save for that. We can get disciplined for that. Men go to the gym, ladies go on the diet. I see it all the time. We do a lot of weddings. counsel a lot of premarital counseling. And if you can get up for the day, then you gotta pray for endurance for the marriage, for the ebb and flows, the ups and downs. It's critical. So I would tell everybody today, as you begin to think about, your core values, when you begin to think about your construct as a person, and your construct your family, when you begin to think about what's important to you in life, be that transparent, with your spouse, and let them know what they're getting into. Let them know what your past looks like, and let them know your inconsistencies. What are the frail parts of your life? Communication, important. We talked about that. But when you talk about those things that are important to you in life, you have to be able to define, why is it important? What makes you need those things in your marriage or need those things in your spouse? It's very important, because we can put demands on people, but yet haven't even given enough thought. Why is this important to me? Why is this my non-negotiable?
Yes.
What is it in my life that makes me know that if I get a husband or a wife, this is non-negotiable? And again, this is a place of vulnerability and transparency. For me, I grew up where my sisters had troubles in their marriage. I grew up in a home where, mom and dad had struggles in their marriage. And so again, what I always felt in marriage, because I watched my parents do this and they grew into it, that the kids were always the number one priority, And so for me, being the only male with 4 sisters living in the house, my job was to protect them. And I understood whatever I had to do to protect my sisters, I was willing to do, and to protect my mother. Whatever I needed to do to make sure their children, as I became an uncle, was protected, that's what I did. So if this is how I tick in my thought process towards a family, I need a wife that I know is going to put the family first. I need a spouse that's going to understand that no matter what my kids are going through, I'm going to be there with them. There is no getting rid of my kids. They can stay home till they're 100 if they want to. I'm okay with that. Not trying to control them, but I don't have no problem with it. And so I knew for me that my non-negotiable had to be a wife with a mother's heart, because it would take a mother's heart to understand my heart. So defining why you have, this type you want. What is it in you that makes you need that as a non-negotiable? And if you know you're not going to be able to live your life in contentment without that, then the Lord is not going to have you in turmoil. He gives us peace. So as my wife prayed, God gave her what she wanted in a husband. As I prayed and sought the Lord, again, we were both single parents, so there was others in our life before each other, and yet God let us have this wonderful marriage. And again, there's been some ups and downs. There's been some high and lows. But when we look at God in our life, we can act crazy and want to go sleep on the couch. We never done that. I can go through midlife crisis and, want to check out of the marriage or whatever. But when I look at God and I look at myself in the mirror, I can say He gave me what I asked for. I gave it to you. So what's the problem? you know, and a lot of us have that testimony. God has given us what we asked for. Now, is there some character adjustments? Yes. Is there some revamping? Yes. Is there some erratic spending habits that has to be modified? Yes. That's all working on marriage. But at the core, when you know you got what you believe in God for, you revamp, you work, you submit to one another. You know, you submit to one another. You know, I like fine dining, and, you know, he go look at the price on the menu and say, I ain't paying for all of that. Submit to it. The man has a plan. Glory to God. Y'all going to retire one day. The man has a plan. One up for us, man. You got a plan.
And just to say, if you're married and you're having issues and you're not getting along, get counseling.
Yes.
And when I say get counseling, I mean get counseling. Go to your pastor.
Not the beauty salon.
Right. No, not the beauty salon, not the barbershop, not the single girlfriend who you just started hanging with a few months ago.
Yes.
Get some counseling. Go to your pastors if you have a pastor. Even if you have a pastor, go to the pastor and also go to family counseling.
Yes.
Because an outside person that don't know you can sometimes help you more than a person that know you. You stay with your pastor for your Christian counseling. See a family counselor for outside,
especially
so that y'all can become one.
Completely transparent. You know, because transparency is very important. So again, these are conversations beyond the pulpit. Yes, we are pastors. And we will tell people, you know, I think you need to seek professional counseling for this. And that's not in a negative.
Yes, it's not in a negative.
Not being derogatory, because you are not telling me the entire story. You know, you're not. And so go where you can be completely transparent. We're fortunate enough that those who are really connected to us in ministry, and we have people who are not even together that will come to us, not even married anymore, with their spouses or significant others, and put us in a forum and say, we need your counseling. We need your help through this. We need your advice through this because you know us. And I'm okay with that. Okay, because all souls belong to the Lord. So we're saying this, that, again, when you had your non-negotiables met, and then you have to revamp and submit, not compromise, submit to one another, that is where the work comes into effect with marriage. I always use the metaphors of the gym. You know, you go in the gym, you are still you. You still love you. You don't love the way you look, but you love you. You love the kind heart you have. You love the mental capacity you have. You love, the generosity, the benevolence. You love all of these qualities about you. But there's one thing you don't like anymore, is the way you may physically look. But everything else is good. You ain't suicidal or anything like that. So you go to the gym and you revamp, you work. And then what happens, most of us, we realize at 55, we can't get 25 back. And you know what we do? We submit. And when we submit that we can't get 25 back, we start working on the best version of 55 that we can be. Glory to God. And that's what we have to understand about our marriage. It's not that that's not what you asked God for. It's not that you wanted a provider, you have a good provider. There are some other things that need to be worked on. It's not you wanted the wife that cooked. She can cook, man. Can she cook, right? But there's other things that might ruffle your feathers. So you have to work on it. You know, we sit here in podcast form, but we work at our marriage. We do, you know. We work at it from goal setting to trend setting. what are we getting ready to do that we know people who think they know us don't realize the level of spontaneity that we have within ourselves is going to say, they crazy, don't you? They going through midlife crisis. So that's the stuff we got to save for when we out of the country. But when we here, every now and then we do some stuff that, our kids be like, I see y'all. But so even in that part of working, you become trendsetters. Man, it's okay. But you got to be comfortable with each other that when you start that new thing or that new walk and God puts something fresh on you, you're okay with it because I'm doing this with my spouse.
Because it's funny how he used the gym example, because I've actually had someone say to me that they loved their spouse but didn't like them. How can you love somebody and not like them? You may not like a thing about them,
right?
But nobody's going to be the same once you marry them, because everybody changes as you age and as you get older. And, that he used that gym example, she might have put on weight. He might have put on weight. So you don't like the fact that he come home from work and just sit there and eat snacks in front of the TV because you want him to lose that weight, but he not losing the weight because he's comfortable.
Yes.
But guess what? You made him that way. You made her that way. You got them to the point that that's what y'all desired to do.
Be comfortable.
Be comfortable. And once you're comfortable, you're comfortable. So if you don't do new things, if you don't step out of your comfort zone, and I'm going to tell you, I'm out of my comfort zone right now. Him and these kids got me doing stuff in my comfort zone that I just, in my head, I would have never thought about doing. But once they say, well, come on, you can do this, I wrap my head around stuff and I do it. Preaching and pastoring. Never saw that coming. But I told somebody the other day, I'm that type of person that walk by the seat of their pants. However God gonna lead me, I'm gonna go.
Yeah.
As long as God is leading me, because I'm not gonna let nobody or anything lead me the wrong way. And that's just how I am. I can just, and I just believe that's how my God is.
So, but back on topic today.
We're still on topic. I wasn't off topic.
How we're dealing with,
but yes, this is us. This is how we deal with it.
We do this at home.
People always see us and be like, "Oh my God, they are so funny." But that's because y'all don't see us in this type of atmosphere. Being able to just relax and be one-on-one.
I will say this, what you see on this podcast, interrupting each other on our conversations, saying, wait, this is on my mind. Let me say that. This is every day for us. It's how we live, In my 80s term, this is how we roll. This is us, in God. And, go ahead.
But yes, as marriage goes, you submit to one another, you push one another, you love on one another, you appreciate one another, and it just goes on and on and on. And it's a constant thing. It's not something you can stop. You just go on and on and on. Yeah. If it's raining outside and you wanted to have a party, so the party moves inside the house. Yeah. It's the same way with us, If I have a down day, he's still there acting goofy, acting crazy, and but he makes me mad. He tries to get me upbeat. So, but
so
that's it.
It's that the non-negotiables. I'm 100 all day, every day, and as my wife said, there's days where her arthritis is acting up, and so I have to slow it down a little bit. I'll sit on the couch with her. We'll watch TV, and I will make it the best I can, the most humorous moments of sitting on the couch, whatever I can do. And instead of going to the gym, the kids will walk through, our living room like, okay, he's on the floor doing sit-ups, okay. He has the baby on his back doing push-ups now. So you again, these are the things you enjoy in life. It's part of you. And so you just make it part of your marriage and part of what's become the foundation in Bedrock: Christianity, exercise, travel, preaching, and all of that just makes your wonderful marriage your wonderful marriage. So, guys, thank you very much. I'm tired now. We have vacation Bible school tonight. I've worked all day. I've been in the studio. We're just sharing, what we had going on today. So if our voice is not as robust as it was earlier, understand it's been a long day. But on behalf of my lovely wife, Pastor Michelle Roberts, my boo, our sons who've been working all of these cameras, lights, and all of that stuff, thank you for your diligence. And to you, our viewers and subscribers, share the link. We're down to earth. It's Conversations Beyond the Pulpit through the lens of faith. So we talk about faith. We talk about the Lord because we love him. And that's what keeps us going. Until next time, we're going to dig heavily into some stuff that is going to blow your socks off. Join us. Heaven smile upon you, and we love you. God bless you.
God bless.